we are going to look at creating the ISE profile. And basically, this is just a profile for Windows. So, if you, let's see, when you go into Windows, let me see if I can get there. You have a users folder. So you can create different profiles using the PowerShell as well. So here's an example of how you can do that. And I'm actually just going to go straight to the console pane because I'm not going to be writing a script yet. So down here, I'm just going to do clear, just to clear my screen. And one thing that I think is really cool to know is IntelliSense, this term right here, IntelliSense. And what's cool about it is that it will help you with commands. So instead of using a lot of your time, I'm really big on saving time. So I'm going to use as many shortcuts as possible. So IntelliSense basically assumes what you might be thinking about typing, and it gives you options. So if I type in $sign and then PRO, it automatically gives me a list of things that I might want. And profile is what I want. So I'm just going to hit tab and it finishes off for me. So that's really good. And yeah, profile is a small word, but it could be longer, or maybe I have problems with spelling. So that really helps out. Okay, so I just did $sign and then PRO, and you notice the options appeared. Now, notice that you have two options, and in the textbook, it actually says you can double click on the profile. So if I do $sign and then PRO, then you can reach down to your mouse and then double click it, and then it finishes it off. I like to use the keyboard. So if I type PRO, I can just do tab and I'm done. Another thing too is that you can do the up and down arrows while you're here too. So you can just do the up and down arrows and then hit tab if maybe you don't want to type anymore. So that is really helpful. Okay, so if you just hit enter, you actually execute that command, and I just created a profile. Okay, so let's create a profile with IntelliSense. So this is going to be a little bit more. So I'm in the console area on the bottom, and if I do new dash I want to choose new item. Okay, well, notice how it's just on the first I. It's not the one that I want. So I could just do the down arrow, or I could just, knowing that it's IT, now it's the one that I want. So then I can just hit tab. Okay, then I want to do profile. So I just do a P, a $sign and then a P, and notice that it's not the one I want again. So I do R, and now it's highlighting the one I want. So now I can hit tab and it finishes off profile. Okay, then we want a space and then a hyphen or a dash. And now it gives us the options for profile. Okay, I want it to do the letter I because I want item type. So then I do hyphen I, and now it's item type. And if you see, if you're following down here, this is where I am right here. I press tab to accept item type. And this is actually the line I want to do to create a profile. Okay, so I'm more than halfway there. I have new item profile hyphen item type, and now I want file. So we're going to type file, or make sure that there's a space, and then file, and then another space. So there's no space, so I want to do space, file, space, and then -F for force. Now I know that these commands are kind of like being pulled out of the air right now, but this is not something you're expected to know right away. Just know that you might need to refer back to these terms, but it's not like you need to memorize what they are or what they're for. But what's most important about this activity is that you notice the different ways that you can enter the commands and how they start, specifically like with the dash. Also notice the spaces are very important when it comes to scripting or programming. Spaces, every character, the hyphen. If I were to do a space after the hyphen, notice how it turns a different color. Very important. If I misspelled it, it's not going to do the same thing. Now, just because it stayed the same color doesn't mean it's going to do the same thing. So just keep that in mind too. Okay, so I just finished that line there. So I press enter, and now you see that it actually did create a profile. Okay, and so here it is right here, PS1. Okay. Okay, so verify that the profile has been created. And now, if you want to set up policies on different users, this is the command to do it too. And policy would be, just the rules on what the user can do on the system logged in as whatever they're logged in as. So here's the command, or to enter the command, you just type in set dash or hyphen. It gives me options, but not until I do EX is where it's what I want. Hyphen, these are my options for set execution policy. We want scope. So I typed in an S and then tab, a space. Notice how it already says local machine. So that's one of our options. Hyphen, execution policy. It already finished that. And let me see if I could move over a bit. And we want it remote signed. And then we want to force it to get it done. And I'll give you an example of that force later on. Remote signed, it just means that you're to access, I guess, like a website, it's going to use the certificate that's on the website. So let's go ahead and press enter. Now it accepted it, and we know it accepted it because it doesn't have any red errors. But let's go ahead and look at it. And we want to check the policy for the local machine. And we just did local machine here. Okay, so to check it, you just do get hyphen execution policy tab, and then hyphen list. You can just do get execution policy, but it's not very detailed. It just says remote signed. Okay, well, if you do a dash or a hyphen list, it gives you more information. So now that we see that there are different scopes, the local machine, so this actual machine is remote signed. So it'll actually get the certificate from whatever site you go to. But notice how the other options are just undefined. So let's actually do it for current user. So it's not the entire machine. What if you just wanted to set the policy for just the current user that's logged in at the time? Okay, Well, remember before that, notice how that was a really long line that we had to type. Well, it could have been worse, but that's kind of a long line. Instead of going through that whole process again, remember that you can just do the up arrow. So I did the up arrow again, and there it is. But instead of putting local machine, I just want to do it for the current user. So I want to set the policy for the current user. I backspace through that. And this situation, notice that it's not giving me options this time. Since I started it differently, it's not giving me options. So you actually need to type it up. You can't just do the IntelliSense quick menu option. Okay, so here is the command here to set the policy for the current user, remote certificate on websites, and we're going to force it, pressing enter. Now remember earlier we did the get execution policy, and we saw that the local machine was remote signed, but the current user wasn't. But we just made it so that it was. So now let's go ahead and do the get execution policy command again. And there it is. The current user is now remote signed as well. Now, the disadvantage of the larger font is that you have to keep on scrolling back and forth. So I actually want to make the font smaller again. That's okay with you. Let me know if it's hard to see in the chat. Okay. Okay, so there it is. We just got the policy list here, and now we see that both of them are remote signed. Okay, and that is it for that part. Oh, and I completely missed